It's time for the Wrestling Observer Extra.
One more time for old time's sake.
With Dave Meltzer, right here on The Law. Live audio wrestling.
And let's go. We're now smoking with the best.
Okay, we're into hour 2. You've heard the Meltzer stinger. He's on the line, fresh back from his trip to Las Vegas. And Dave, we're going to talk about across the pond first. The WWE did their tapings for the UK live show, and the tapings that weren't had were the ITV World of Sport tapings. John and I were just discussing this on the show and thought perhaps that WWE could be, knocking on some doors here and trying to get this UK live show on conventional TV. What do you think?
I thought when they first started doing it, that was the idea, was to do that. I mean, the one weird one is do you think that maybe they'll go to ITV and go, hey, we've got this localized show? I mean, the thing was taped for the WWE Network. It's supposed to start airing on the WWE Network within a couple of weeks. So we'll see.
It just seems that if there's no contract there, Dave, and ITV has allotted this time in their schedule for later this year, there's no show. I mean, this seems to be a really advantageous position for both sides to get on the same page.
Yeah, I suppose it's a possibility. I haven't heard anyone talk about that at all. But, I mean, if they want someone to do an hour show and WWE would be a place to go. I know that ITV is still talking to its own wrestlers that they're going to do a taping, but nobody's got a date, and it doesn't appear that it's going to be soon. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of unhappy people because people thought this was going to be a big game changer there, and it's not happening.
Do you think that Impact and Anthem are kind of having the realization that they took on a lot here? When you look at that schedule, that they were going to go tape these 10 episodes and then get in a plane and go straight to India right after to tape a month's worth of television. It just seems like they are trying to take on so much right now when you're still trying to get your domestic product up and running.
Yeah, I mean, they are. There's no doubt when you're talking about the idea of doing a specialized show in India and the TV tapings in India and your UK show, which would be a weekly show. The India show would be a weekly show, and their regular show Impact, which would be a weekly show. So yeah, there's a lot of oars in the water, and I don't know how. They don't have a giant staff like WWE, so it's not exactly the easiest thing to pull off. So, you're right. That was definitely something to look at.
Let's stay on Anthem and Impact here. This week there was more kerfuffle, of course, in the ongoing Broken situation. TNA filing for trademarks this week was the latest. For Broken Matt, Brother Nero, Vanguard 1, and a few others. What possible effect could this have, David? It just seems like something that they're doing to almost be annoying at this point.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to establish that they own the rights to that gimmick. WWE, there've been talks from WWE about getting that. So I think that maybe they just figured that they needed to have that thing, But I mean, they can file for that, but Matt Hardy can file for that too. So it's everything is still really up in the air, and there's a lot of. The Hardys have their argument that they created it all and they funded it and everything like that. Obviously, Anthem has their version, and I don't know how a court's going to rule, and I don't know. Again, we haven't seen Matt Hardy's contract, so I don't even know what it says.
I'd be curious, what is going to be the step too far? Because thus far, Anthem has sat there while Matt's used the voice. They're doing the mannerisms on TV. I mean, would it just have to be going to, okay, we're going to try and merchandise this as Broken Matt Hardy? It seems that... Well,
they haven't used the name. I mean, they've done... I don't see that you can stop the voice and the hand gestures. But, yeah, when it comes to merchandising, that's the key. If they start merchandising it, then Anthem is going to definitely, try to claim that they have the ownership rights, yeah.
Dave, I can't remember if we asked you this last week in regards to, I watched what WWE did last week with the Wyatt and the house and such, and I just think that going forward, if they do try to do the broken character, it will be completely messed up.
I believe that if Matt Hardy is not in pretty much control of the direction, that it will end up being very sad, yes. I just think that it won't work. I think Matt has I'm very confident Matt has like a good idea of where he wants to go, but I think one of the reasons it worked in TNA was because they gave him that full power, and one of the reasons that they're not in TNA was because Jeff wouldn't give them the full power. Mm-hmm. So, but in WWE, the odds of them getting the full power are a lot less than in TNA or in Impact.
Where do you see, Dave, now that we're about a month or so into this Hardy's return, I mean, the long term here, this feels like if they were to get the gimmick, it very much benefits Matt, and I don't really see that as a main event character for Matt. Jeff seems to be the one with the main event upside, where I don't think he would even be, for the long term, even attached to this character.
There's a lot of different ideas of how to use it. I mean, I do think that Jeff Hardy has the charisma and the history there to be a main event singles guy,
sure,
if that's the direction they want to go. And then Matt, I mean, the thing with Matt is that when Jeff has gone as a single, Matt has always been left behind. And I don't know that Matt as a single without the character would be anything. I mean, he'd be okay because he was always popular, but it always felt like they never saw him as anything more than mid-card as a single, except for maybe in the Edge feud. And even in the Edge feud, if you remember, I mean, Matt was the babyface in the Edge feud, but in the end, Edge beat him almost every time except for like the one blow-off. So, I think it'd benefit Matt a lot to get the gimmick because with that gimmick, he would be so ridiculously over that they would almost have to at least give him a certain level of push.
Continuing on with WWE, Mauro Ranallo, another topic that we speak of pretty much every week. There's been some rumors circulating about Mauro still chatting with the WWE. Is there a chance for a possible return here, Dave?
I mean, you never say never in wrestling.
Of course, yes.
I know that before the fight, the Klitschko fight, that there were still open lines of a possibility. Yes. I don't know since then. He went to England, and I haven't heard of anything since. So I don't know anything, after that point. So, but yeah, it was still open up to that point.
It would seem that there is that opening there if he were to be brought back and almost insulated away from Vince McMahon.
But that's not going to happen. How can an announcer be insulated from Vince McMahon when Vince McMahon goes crazy on announcers? And that's like that's a big problem, And then, I mean, there's other things that they would probably have to do. Yeah, I mean, I don't like the odds of it happening right now that much, but they don't like the idea that in a year or something that it wouldn't happen. I think that's more of a possibility. Time does heal a lot of wounds.
Let me throw a wild card at you because I asked Pollock about this too. UFC has still got a gaping hole for a good play-by-play announcer.
I mean, it's a possibility, but Dana's never really been enamored with Mauro Ranallo. But again, that can change, and there's other people who are in charge.
That's a big point now. I mean, it's not really Dana White's organization anymore. Right. So here's a guy with a lot of cred.
It depends on what WME, IMG think of Mauro Ranallo as an announcer, and I don't have an answer to that. So I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. And I mean, you know what? When he was working for WWE, it wasn't out of the realm of possibility because he did have that unique contract where he could do anything but pro wrestling. That did not block him from UFC.
Oh wow! I always kind of thought it would block him from UFC as well.
I mean, and it would have been for anyone else, but for whatever reason, when they signed him, I think one of the reasons it was exclusive for pro wrestling because they didn't want him doing New Japan. But I think the idea that he was doing the big boxing match, I think they liked that. Mm-hmm. The idea that this guy doing the big boxing matches is doing our SmackDown show. So that's why they got that contract worded the way they did.
Well, and as we get closer, I mean, when Mayweather and McGregor starts to take more of a focus, he's the guy. He would be Showtime's guy to call this thing.
Yeah, I would say, given the knowledge of MMA and boxing, he would be the guy he would definitely be the guy to call that fight. But I would think that they would use a UFC announce team. That's my gut, but there's so many different variables in this because you're right, because it's Showtime, and if it's Showtime, they probably will want more. And I don't see, if it's a Showtime production, I don't see UFC fighting them over the announcer. I don't see them disliking more where they would fight him over it. I think they would actually be happy with it because it would be a guy because you just don't want a pure boxing guy doing it. In my mind, just because of the fan base, because the fan base is going to be a million boxing fans, going to be a million, MMA fans, and it's just going to be another million people who aren't fans of either, but are going to be just up for the spectacle because of the hype.
Well, listen, a combination of, Mauro Ranallo and whether it be Brian Stan or Daniel Cormier, I mean, Mauro knows all those guys, and they would have a tremendous amount of respect. That would actually be an ideal announce team for
Absolutely.
that fight.
Yeah, Mauro Ranallo and Brian Stan would really be a good announce team, or any of the guys, Dominic Cruz, or any one of those guys, Rogan. And it probably would be Rogan if you think about it, because this is an A show. I mean, it's as much of an A show as there is. So I think that if UFC was going to pick the color guy, that they would go with Rogan on that one.
Okada and Omega, they're lined up for their rematch of their fantastic match at the beginning of this year. It's going to happen June 11th. Do you see the title on Omega in order to make the approach to North America?
I mean, I don't know the answer. I know that as soon as that match was over, my thought was they need a rematch, and Omega needs to win the rematch, and my date was June 11th in Osaka at the time when I was thinking of it. So everything lined up for that. So if they think the same way I do, yeah. But, there's a lot of different variables there in the sense of, do they want to make Okada into this, Antonio Inoki-like star with this giant, reign? I mean, you could do that. What's Omega's situation as far as long-term? Because if Omega is not committed past January, I don't know that you push him so hard and then have him leave like AJ Styles, if that's the case. I mean, that's another variable. If Kenny Omega is committed and says, okay, I'm going to stay through the end of 2018, I would say absolutely you go with him, and then he comes to the United States as champion for the Long Beach shows. I just think that's the way to go. And all things equal, that would be my pick of the way to do it.
Well, and given, Dave, the fact you've got Dominion, the Long Beach shows, and then the G1, how are they not sitting down with Omega right now and getting a sense? How can you go ahead with these shows with that a question mark coming out of the summer? I think that's got to happen now.
You've got to settle all that, and then there's so many ways they can go with G1. But the key is you got to know where Omega stands, because if Omega wins, I mean, he could lose it before G1. I mean before the Tokyo Dome, but I wouldn't do that. I would have him go in there in the main event, and then do you go with Tanahashi? Do you go with Naito? Do you go with Okada at the Tokyo Dome? And Okada might be the guy. Naito might be the guy for that matter, too. So, it's real good right now for them when you've got, a couple of different people that you could go with, and with the confidence that no matter what the match is, it's going to be out of this world.
Dave, speaking of New Japan making its way to North America, we just had Adam Cole on the show. Do you see Adam Cole possibly in this mix?
New Japan?
Yep.
I mean, I would say it's a possibility. I mean, I still think that if I'm the betting man, I bet that he's in NXT. But, I mean,
I'm going to imagine there's going to be some significant offers for him, especially the ROH New Japan combo to
ROH New Japan, Impact, although Impact isn't spending big money on talent, but they may feel that he's worth it because Impact does need game changers. I don't know that he's a game changer, but if they feel they need game changers, I mean, there's not a lot of free agents out there right now for Impact to sign, and they may feel they could get a coup with him because I mean, the one thing, he's a very good promo guy, and he's good enough in the ring. And, he has some buzz, although a lot of people, it's hard to keep your buzz in Impact for whatever reason right now, but maybe that'll change.
As was true, we saw with Bennett and Maria. And we haven't talked to you about them. What's their timeline? Because there's hot rumors on them going to SmackDown, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've assumed that they were WWE bound for months, honestly. And, it's just a question. It's like that whole group of people that, you're expecting to go that are kind of sitting there on hold, them and Kyle O'Reilly and there's Bobby Fish and there's a bunch. They're all ready. They're all contractually free. Every one of those people is contractually free. Every one of them has talked to WWE. I think that every one of them has gotten a good feeling from WWE, but WWE has been slow in bringing those people in.
And that's one thing for Adam Cole. At 27, you look at this giant influx potentially. Maybe I'll be that much more in demand a year from now.
Well, you can think about that, but I mean, he's been waiting for a long, long time. So that's why I say that they're heads up. But it wouldn't shock me if they go in there and just go, especially if people get a really good vibe from New Japan in the United States, and there's a feeling that New Japan's going to be a hot way to go, because the one thing with New Japan, I mean, it's not WWE money, but if it's like not everyone's going to be, but it's probably better money than NXT money. Although WWE, if they want to, if they really want someone bad enough, they have the ability to pay, outbid anyone. I mean, again, from like an Adam Cole standpoint, I mean, it's like, do you kind of feel that like you're ready to go? And he might feel that now, like it's like
probably, yeah.
I am ready to go, or do you go in there and go, hey, you know what? I got all these buddies here, and we're really having a blast, and maybe I can do it for one more year and go and go at the end of 2018 and have a fun year and easier schedule and less restrictions and things like that. If that's what you want, I mean, there's it's a good time for a guy like that because there's no option that you're forced to take. So you can go with the one that, and there's no rush. So it's like, yeah, he could just go, hey, give me one more year.
Yeah, he's in a great
spot.
spot.
Just say, hey, I've waited a year and a half to go. Let me go.
Speaking of letting you go, that's what we have to do with you, Dave. That's our time for this week. What's coming up in the Observer?
Just tons of stuff. We're going to have some stories on J. Michael Kenyon, famous historian. Not famous, but an amazing wrestling historian and a completely crazy character who passed away this week. And, story on the Dontaku show in Fukuoka, more on WWE financials, the European tour, obviously, whatever injuries happen and things that come from there, and just a lot of indie stuff. I mean, God, the indie scene all over the world is just really picking up. So we'll have a lot on that, and Ring of Honor War of the Worlds first couple of nights. So yeah, there's going to be a lot in this week's issue. All
right, good stuff. We look forward to that and chatting with you again next week at this same time. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, have a great week.
You too. Dave Meltzer, WrestlingObserver.com is where you can find all of his work and all of what he just talked about.